He said Dan's going to start speaking. Let me head to the bathroom. When Mike comes in, let's give him a standing ovation.
There he is.
Where's that music coming from?
Next door.
Yeah, maybe we can close the door so it doesn't interrupt this once-in-a-lifetime speech. Okay, so I'll start over again. So welcome everyone, so glad that all of you are here, and we have some people here who were here literally from the beginning, which is really incredible. But let me start with this. This is actually not a holiday party, this is our 30-year anniversary party. We discussed this somewhat, I think in the last staff meeting or two, we said, oh, what do we want to do? Do we want to combine a holiday party with the 30-year anniversary? Or do we want to have a holiday party, something like that, at the new office? So it was unanimous, I believe, that we would have a holiday celebration when we moved to the new office, and that tonight would serve really as our 30-year anniversary party, which is really an incredible thing. But with that said, let me wish everyone a happy holiday season, Christmas, Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. I think the main thing on everybody's wish list, in my mind, given the state of the world, I would just hope that we could literally have world peace. I think that's the greatest thing that any of us can be given. So, moving on, I am going to do a little bit of a firm staff meeting. So, you may remember when we had, what was our last event? Was it International Day?
Yes.
We're at Knights of Columbus.
Yeah.
And you may remember that Jenny was selected for the Excellence Award. However, Rachel Castellanos did not want to give up the crown, so we didn't have it. But she brought it tonight so we could celebrate Jenny once again. So Jenny, please come up and get your crown. So try it on, everybody. Hold on. Everybody get pictures. Okay, so for those of you that aren't familiar, this award started off being monthly, but it kind of got extended because we realized when people received the reward, they wanted to hold on to it, so it kind of became for 2 or 3 months, you were permitted to hold the crown in terms of the Geltrude Excellence Award for Outstanding Performance in the Firm. So, congratulations, Jenny, well deserved. So, how this all started. So let's go back in time 30 years plus. So some of you have heard some of these stories and some have not. So let's start with this. If we go back to 1994. Let's start in that year. So if you were not born in 1994, raise your hand.
Oh my gosh.
How depressing is that? And if you were born within a couple years after 1994, raise your hand. If you were born in the 90s, can we go with that? So it's pretty much like half the firm. Yeah, a little bit depressing. But let's go back in time. So in 1994, I was working at a firm with Maria Geltrude called Carico Associates. And I had just become a partner. And I guess I was 28 at the time, and I was really excited about it. However, what I found in a short period of time, that they did not share the same vision of what I wanted in my career. My absolute intention was to work there and help grow that firm and probably have all of you, at least Mike Carlin, but all of you join me there. But things didn't work out, again, because they simply didn't have the right vision of really what I wanted. And what I wanted was, I wanted to create a firm which I would want to work at. That's really what my general thought process was. So because I realized that that was not going to happen there, Maria and I started to talk, and I started to float this idea of maybe we should start our own firm. Now, we have to put this in perspective. So I'm 28, Maria's 26, 27 at the time. We have no money, and we have a 1-year-old, and we had a house, and all the other expenses that go with that. And on top of it, some of you may know that I have a master's in tax. And I was actually in graduate school at the time. So throw that in the mix. So it really didn't seem like an optimal time to do this. So when Maria and I talked about it, she was really nervous. She said, "Are you sure? Do you want to do this? Can we do it?" And I said to her, "Well, if you don't want to do it, maybe what we can do is you can stay working where you are at Caraco's, and I'll go start the firm by myself." And she was adamant and said, "No way. If you're starting a firm, I'm coming with you." So we basically decided to take the leap at that point. Now, it wasn't so easy to just say, "Hey, we're going to start a firm." One, we were broke. We literally didn't have anything. So I really didn't have any money, or we didn't have any money to start the firm. So I went to my parents and I asked them for a loan. I asked them for $20,000. I needed $10,000. I keep saying we needed $10,000 to fund the business, to get it up and running. And I needed $10,000 to basically float us to live, because we worked together. So whatever we were making was going to go down to zero. So it was a big risk at the time. And when you look back, it was crazy. But it worked out. And it worked out because of some of the people that are in this room, who there would be no Geltrude Company without without all of you to where we are today, but certainly at the critical beginning of the firm. So again, my parents lent us the seed money. Our first year revenues, by the way, to put it in perspective, $48,000. That's how much money we made in 1995. To be exact, the first day Geltrude Company was open was May 25th, 1995. So I guess it was basically a little bit more than half a year, and we grossed $48,000. Now, even though I was in the process of getting my master's in tax, I wasn't that strong in tax. So somehow I convinced Mary Giacchi that she should come and work with us. Now, ironically, Mary was also at Caraco at the time, which they were a lot more stable firm than we were. But I was able to convince her to say, "I think that you should come with us. We're going to build this really great firm. We're going to get big, and we're going to do all these great things." And she believed me. Yeah, it's kind of funny in a way, but not so much, because Mary at the time, did you have 1 or 2 kids? One, and shortly one on the way thereafter, which I have to say I wasn't that happy about it. So there you have it. That was how Geltrude started. We rented one room that was probably the size of, in 513, the current conference room in my office. That was it. That's all there was, and it was the three of us. And I was doing whatever I do. Maria was handling Chart House, because that was our biggest account at the time. And Mary was doing all the tax work. And that's how it began. So the first thing I'll say is, no Mary Giacchi, no Geltrude and Company. So that was one of the key pieces of the puzzle. But the absolute key, which Geltrude would absolutely never have started without Larry Garb from Hart's Mountain. So I had landed Hart's Mountain, specifically Chart House Restaurant, as a client while I was at Carico's, and I got it as a referral through Arthur Anderson. Ironically, we were handling Chart House before Larry got to Hart's. So when Larry got to Hart's, I could remember it like it was yesterday. I was out of the office, I came back, I had a message from Larry Garb at Hart's Mountain. Who the hell's Larry Garb? So obviously I call him back, and Larry explains who he is. And I'm like, all right, he's somebody important. And he says to me, he goes, you know, I don't quite understand what you do for us. And I said, uh-oh. Here's the new guy at our biggest account, and he doesn't know what we do. And I said, Larry, you remember this? I said, Larry, let's have lunch. We went to Red Robin. I paid. We went to Red Robin, and I explained to Larry how crucial Geltrude and Company was to the partnership between Chart House and Hart's Mountain. And somehow, he believed me. Somehow. So being able to secure Larry's trust and belief in Geltrude, when we started Geltrude, he allowed Chart House to move, to come with us. And literally, that was most of our revenue. If we don't have Chart House, there is no Geltrude. So no Larry Garb, no Geltrude. So Larry, I want to say to you, and I've said this to you before, I am eternally grateful to you for all you've done for the Geltrudes and Geltrude and Company. Really, I can't express it enough. Thank you. Now, the reason we're here tonight, right, is this is where it all started. And here's the funny part. August 30th, 1994. Who remembers that date? Mike, you remember that date? And you remember that date? Of course. Hans remembers that date because, no, not the fire. Fire was 1998, May of 98. That was when this restaurant opened. I was here, and Hans was here. And he's still here. Let's hear it for Hans. So to some degree, no Hans, no Geltrude. He believed. Thank you, Hans. So as long as we're going to bring up the fire, by the way. So now, Chart House, let's fast forward to 1998, May of 1998, specifically Memorial Day weekend. Chart House still is Geltrude's largest account. And Maria and I literally had just closed on our house 2 days before. And we were at a picnic at our neighbor's house and on Whitford, where we live now. And we went home, and I had 25 messages.
And I was pregnant.
Oh, forgot that part.
Right.
Maria's pregnant with Frank. This is how Frank enters the picture. So Maria's quite pregnant with Frank. We just closed on a house that was going to require a ton of work, and our largest client was on fire. So the messages were interesting because it starts off, and there were messages from everyone. And the first message was, just saw on the news there's a fire at Chart House. And every message got worse. And then the last message was, Larry. Dan, Larry Gardner, Chart House is gone. And I looked at Maria and I said, I literally don't know what we're gonna do. So we're looking at each other. I said, I'm gonna go down there. And I couldn't get down here. I don't know if you remember this, Larry. I couldn't get down here. All the roads were blocked. So I parked in Weehawken and I ran here. It's what you do for your largest clients. And I met Larry down here. Hans was here too. Hans was such a mess, crying. I don't know a guy who loves what he does more than Hans. He was an absolute wreck. So I went, I hugged Hans, I found Larry, we started talking about what was going on. And Manny came down, right?
I think so.
I know he did. So Manuel Stern came down, one of the owners of Harts Mountain, and he saw me talking to all the people. And you may not remember this, but he went to Larry and said, who is that guy? And Larry said, well, that's a Chart House accountant. And he goes, what's he doing here? And Larry goes, he ran here from Weehawken. So I think that showed we were committed. But after, literally, the dust settled, I went to Larry and I said, hey, Larry, I know it's not your problem, but you guys are our biggest account. And if there's no work for us with Chart House, I don't know if we have a company anymore. It was that bad. And Larry said, don't worry about it. And I worried, but Larry, true to his word after that, because we had been so committed to servicing the account and doing everything that we could to help Hearts and to help Chart House, Larry gained confidence, he believed, and he continued to refer us work. And literally there was no looking back, because after that, the other work that we started to do for Hearts and some of the jobs that you guys work on now is what replaced Chart House. And Geltrude continued to go. So again, I say, no Larry, no Geltrude. So Tiffany Casal was supposed to be here tonight. Tiffany was our first employee. Mary was an independent contractor. So I don't know what she was doing on her Schedule C. I don't know. But she wanted a 1099, so be it. And by the way, let me just offer up one other point. When I said Mary believed, there were times Mary would work and I paid her by the hour. I think it was $35, I think. I could not afford to pay her. So she said, don't worry about it, just pay me when you have it. So again, how fortunate we were that I had the most critical person of Mary doing all our tax work. I reviewed stuff. I never found anything wrong. But I mean, she was working. I didn't have enough to pay her. And she believed. I don't think I owe you anything. And I'll make one other point about how fortunate we've been with all the people through the years, is that I offered Mary 25% of Geltrude for free. I said, I will give you equity in the company. You don't have to pay for it. You've earned it. And she said no. Now, you may want to ask her about that decision later tonight and what that 25% may be worth now. But she said to me, I can't do what you really expect from me, so I'm not going to accept 25% of your company. Basically saying, I didn't earn it and I'm not going to earn it, so I'll just keep working as I did. Crazy? Maybe, but she believed in something and she held true to her values. She wasn't doing it for a quick buck. She was doing it to help friends who had a dream, and she was just happy to be part of it. Then Tiffany Cassell, who was in high school when she started working with us. So before there was Pauline, and before there was Mike Carlin, and before there was everybody, our big hire was we hired a kid to work with us after high school. That was like a big deal for us. We had to go to ADP, actually get payroll. These were the little things that started to roll. And Tiffany left after a period of time, worked for us for many years, ultimately decided to become a teacher. She was supposed to be here tonight, and I really wish she had been here, but unfortunately her father is rather sick, so she wasn't here. She left me a message today, she wasn't here to make it, but I certainly wanted to recognize her. So, let's go forward to the next two people who believed, and again, there would be no Geltrude without them. One, of course, is Mike Carlin, and the other is Pauline Novello. Does anybody remember Pauline Novello? She was nice. Now she's Pauline Patty. At the time, she was Pauline Novello. Now, here's the crazy part. Those two worked with Geltrude before Franklin Avenue, when we were in the lawyer's office on Center Street, when we had no money, and I started to pick up some audit work. And by the way, I was an auditor at Arthur Anderson, but I was busy doing other things, so I said to Mike, can you help me? It was a pension audit, ironically, from GBT. It's a pension audit, and I said, Mike, can you help me do this pension audit? So he was working at another firm, was taking vacation days to come to work with me in the field. There was no working remote. Mike and I were in the field doing work together to do this audit. Can you believe it? Pauline, same thing. And I didn't pay Mike. He wouldn't actually take money.
I thought he made him pay him.
No.
He didn't pay him for that vacation day.
He did not. I know it's very not like Mike Carlin. But he got it back over time, let me tell you. But it's true, Mike worked for me. I didn't have the money. I said, Mike, I'll pay you. He said, don't worry about it. I asked myself why. I guess he believed that there was something more. Pauline had a full-time job. I needed help. She would take days off and come and help us do work. Didn't ask me for money. I offered to pay her. She said, don't worry about it. Apparently she believed in something. I can't express my gratitude for having these people in my life. I mean, when you talk about cause and effect, my life would be completely different. I don't know what it would be, but it would not be what it is right now if not for those people who believed. Some of you know this, probably all of you. The first day I met Mike at GBT, he sat in the cubicle next to me. And the head of HR came over to me before I met Mike, and he said, hiring this new guy, a little on the quiet side, I'm going to sit him next to you because I think you can bring him out of his shell. Great. So Mike sits next to me. I'm like, look at this guy. His first day here, he's working. So I said to him, Mike, let's go to lunch. So I went to lunch with Mike. We started talking. There were people we knew. We had people in common. We really hit it off. So we got back after a couple hours. He's working. So I rolled my chair back and I go, hey, Mike. He looks at me and I go, me and you should start our own firm. I had known Mike about 3 hours. But I knew. I said, here's a guy that can do all my work. It's true. Because fast forward, Mike and I didn't even really have a partnership agreement. And I said, Mike, here's what we're going to do. We're split everything 50-50. Whatever I make, you make, vice versa. There'll be no arguing over money. We're going to split everything 50-50, literally on a handshake. I said, but here's how it's going to work. I'm going to bring in the work, and you're going to get the work out. That was it. That was our partnership agreement. For me, it's worked perfectly. I dare say not so bad for Mike, but it seems to have worked. So that's how Mike Carlin got involved. But before Mike Carlin, there was someone else. Before Strategic, there was Mike Marin. Who the hell is Mike Marin? There's another guy who had a job somewhere else, moonlighting, keeping our computer system going. So I'm sure some of you have been looking and saying, who is this guy? Mike Marin, stand up. Other people don't know this guy. And Mike Marin was with us for the first 20 years or so. Is that right? How long have we had Strategic? 10 years? So I think Mike was probably with us for the first 20 years. And again, we were kind of a ragtag bunch. Here's a guy who's working in a school system. Where was that school? Where was it?
First is right where I live, out in Sussex County.
He's in Sussex County. So we have a computer problem, right? Okay, I'll be there 8 o'clock tonight. But whatever we had to do, or he would get on the phone and help us through it. I don't know how it all came together, but somehow it worked. So here's a guy who was moonlighting to help us. We paid him, but it was a lot of work. And I often wondered, why would Mike Marin, who by the way, he's the nicest guy I've ever met. He's a sweetheart in every way. He's great at what he does. Always has been. Why would this guy want to work weekends and work nights and sometimes take time off from work to come down to Nutley to help us with our computers? And I said, I don't know. He must believe. And I will say this, I said it earlier today. I said it to Joanne when we got here. I said, one of the saddest days in my 30 years at Geltrude was when Mike Marin came to me and said, Dan, you guys are getting too big. I just can't do it anymore. And I said, no, Mike, you can't leave. You're with us. You gotta stay with us. He said, I can't do it. You need more. You need more what I can give you. I was upset for weeks over that because I did not want Mike Marin to leave because he was such a good guy and he believed, but we understood it was time. So I'm sure all of you, based upon your experiences with Strategic, wish we had Mike Marin. If you notice, Mike Marin's here tonight, not Strategic. Thank you, Mike Marin, for all you did. Mike was there day one. There's another guy here, and you know what I said to him very early on after I met him? I said, if you don't like Sal Coco, Joanne, what's the rest of that line?
You don't like ice cream.
You don't like ice cream. If you don't like Sal Coco, you don't like ice cream. Sal and I Sal and Geltrude started our firms at the same time, literally at the same time. And at that time, we were cross-referring work back and forth. I can't tell you how many clients initially we'd gotten from Sal. Every new client Sal was getting as he was building his client base, Geltrude was their accountants. And I said, boy, how lucky I am to meet this guy. I didn't know him very well. I met him at a political fundraising event. I heard him speak, and he was from Nutley. I had never met him before. And I didn't know why. Later I found out he's a lot older than me. So we didn't run in the same circles. I heard him speak at a political event, and I said, who is this guy? So I remember it was American Bistro. He was at the bar, and I went over and introduced myself, and we started talking. Hey, what do you do? I just started an accounting firm. I just started an investment company. And we started talking, and literally from that day on, we became the closest of friends. We had an immediate trust. And again, Sal referred us so many clients. And I say to myself, why would he do that? He believed. So I say to this, more than 30 years later, you don't like Sal Coco, you don't like ice cream. He is one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my life. So thank you, Sal. And I'll also tell you this, you don't hear people speak positively about attorneys. But I always say I don't go anywhere without my attorney. So Pat Ruffalo is here. Pat has been representing me and representing Geltrude, not 30 years, but maybe 27 or so. You know, Pat's been with us through thick and thin. And I mean, there's been some thick and thin. One time, we fired a partner, and he was claiming to the police I kidnapped him. And I had to call Pat. I said, Pat, I got a problem. I said, I'm terminating a partner, and he's telling the police I kidnapped him. I'll be right over. So Pat came over, and he accused Pat of kidnapping him. So I was off the hook. That's what good lawyers are supposed to do. But really, Pat has been a tremendous asset to our firm. As a matter of fact, Pat's office was in our office for a period of time, as was Sal Coco's. So that says a lot that we were actually sharing office space together. And I'm very grateful for all that Pat has done. And perhaps Pat's greatest achievement to date is Pat is the one who negotiated the demerger agreement with Courtney. Let's hear it for Pat. So thank you, Pat. We're eternally grateful to you for all you've done. And when it was thick and thin, Pat didn't always charge me as much as he charges me now. He used to believe. All right. When things got rolling, and I mean really rolling, is when we bought the buildings on Franklin Avenue, which sadly will be coming down in the next 4 months. That was the turning point, and let me be quite clear, that was Maria Geltrude's idea. We were having lunch in the Franklin Steakhouse, which is now Neil, and we saw there was a for sale sign on the buildings across the street, and Maria said, we gotta buy those, we have to get those buildings. The negotiations were very, very difficult. It was on, it was off. I actually wanted to back out of the deal, and she said, we can't back out of the deal, we gotta buy those buildings. And we did, and that's when things really started to take off. And then, as we started to really find our groove, another key player came into our lives, and that's John Losek. And brought his partner that I fired and kidnapped and fired and But either way, John had been partners with him for quite a number of years. And John's partner didn't have the same vision that we did. And it wasn't going to work. And he was unhappy, John's partner. And I went to John and I said, John, look, I have to throw out your partner. He's just not fitting in. I said, I'd love for you to stay, but he's got to go. So it's up to you. What do you want to do? I understand if you want to leave, and we'll have to undo this thing. And he said, no, I'm staying. And I thought, why would he stay? He believed. And that is really when we started to find our groove. Because we had the players in place who were really committed to a vision that we were going to build something special. And that was in 2001. So still, we're talking about 24 years ago. So that's a lot of the core history. And obviously, people have come and gone into the life of the firm. And I would say we went from no ones to someones. Because people believed. People believed in something that was greater than us individually. I knew in my heart we had something special. And I can give you some very specific examples. One is when you have two of the partners who have their spouses working in the firm. I mean, I don't know what John was thinking when he walked into that. Exactly. Well, what does that mean? But somehow it worked. And over close to, like, when did you start? 97? Was it? January of 97. So that's 28 years or more. 29. Yeah, almost 29 years. The four of us have never really had a major fight. We've had disagreements, clearly, but it's literally unheard of where you could have two couples working in an environment and not have drama, and not have things from outside the office coming in the office. Think about that. Talk about a family business. I've had relatives working here, Mike's had relatives working here, and even with that, we still have never had any issues between us. That's something special. But we had one vision. And I have to say, there were times where we had this vision of let's get bigger, let's be more profitable, let's do great things. The question was, how do we get there? And on that, we didn't always agree. So me, Mike, and John would get together, have discussions, and when we came out of that meeting, we always had a united front of what we were going to do. Even if not everybody was 110% on board, we figured out how to do it. The secret to our success in terms of where we are now has been our ability to adapt. Think about it, we're still doing it now. How much are we changing with the times? It literally shows itself continually how that culture never went away. And that's always been our secret sauce. And think about it, of the people sitting here, right? And obviously there's people who couldn't make it tonight. In looking around the room, I believe there's only one person in this room who's working at Geltrude through a headhunter. Everybody who's here is word of mouth. So when it was really hard to get employees, everybody was hiring people. Does anybody know who the employee is here in this room?
Torito.
It's Mike Torito. He's the only one that we paid for. You get what you pay for, right? So think about that. I mean, that says something. And look, I could literally tell a story as I look around the room about each and every one of you, right? And we've heard them before. How did Nick get his job here? His mother called me, right? I knew I had to mention her, right? So there's so many ways that we arrived here, but we're here for a reason. And I dare say it's because we believe. Now, there's something kind of interesting. We talked to a firm 2 years ago, and we thought we had this great match. And we were going to move forward in doing the deal and acquiring them. And then there was a hiccup, and they pulled out. So I called Joe Tarasco, and I said, Joe, why are these guys pulling out of the deal? We're the right match. It works. Right? Mike Carlin is sitting there going, which firm is this? They'll remember when I say the punchline. Joe, why don't they want to be part of us? They can't get past the fact that you don't have chargeable time. I said, what do you mean? They don't want to join your group because when they looked at the partner's hours, you don't have chargeable time. So Mike's sitting there saying, now you know what I've been dealing with. What did these guys see that I missed? I said, but Joe, we exchanged financials. I make 4 times what these guys make. So obviously, and all our partners make much more than them. What aren't they getting? Obviously, we have the right formula. They don't see it. So I say, Joe, you got to set up another meeting with them. So I have another meeting with them. And I said over and over to them, we have a formula here that clearly works. Look at our numbers, look at our success, look at everything that we've done. And they just kept saying to me, we don't understand why you're not chargeable. And I said, it's the way it is. You got to believe. And they didn't. They're lost. They're gone. They didn't see what other people see, right? Principle number 1, it's a team. Don't worry about what someone else is doing. Look at where the team is going. You want to look at a team that wins a championship and says, well, wait a minute, the coach didn't do this, or this guy didn't do that. Well, if you're winning, why would you have a problem with that? They couldn't see it. Then we had another firm. We spent months and months and months negotiating. We get to the final negotiation. We're ready to sign. Me, Mike, and this gentleman are sitting in the conference room, wrapping everything up. And he says, Dan, one final thing. I want to talk to you about the name of the firm. Mike Carlin gets up and says, I'm out of here. Leaves the negotiation. Walks out of the main conference room. Mike, where are you going? It's over. He wanted to change the name of the firm. Not going to happen. Because it wasn't about changing the name of the firm. He didn't see what we were seeing. To me, that was an excuse. That was an excuse. Because going back in time, remember I mentioned Mary? I'll give you 25% of the company. When Mike Carlin joined, I wasn't giving him 25% of the company, but I did say to him, I said, Mike, if you want, we'll change the name of the firm. And have your name in it, you know, Geltrude and Carlin. He goes, I'm not looking for my name in lights. Just keep the name of the firm the way it is. I never understood that. But I guess he believed. So there's a theme here. Either you see it or you don't. And all of you here see it. That's why we have the success we have. One final point on this, in terms of my storytelling. When we were negotiating with Charles and acquiring his firm, what a good man Charles is. guy fits like a glove. You're a gem, Charles. You really are. So happy you joined us. And he had his tag-along nephew with him. So we're doing the negotiation, and he says, you know, my nephew, key component of my firm, will you make him a partner? Absolutely not. No way. He's not going to become a partner. Charles said, okay. I met with Kyle. We met with Kyle. Seemed like a good guy. Hard worker. Nice guy. Say, Charles, if he's that good, he'll learn it. I'll be fair about it. Funny. 1 year later, Kyle becomes a partner. He earned it. He saw it. He drove towards it. Made it happen. He saw the vision. He believed. So I say to you, does anybody have a problem with Kyle? All right, you guys can talk to me about that on Monday. That's probably putting people on the spot. But look, Kyle joins the partnership group and he fits exactly in. Because it's all about what you earn. My job, what's Dan do? My job is to do nothing but show you the path. So if you want an analogy, it's snowing out. I'll go out, I'll shovel the path. But it's up to you to walk the path. And it doesn't matter who else walks the path. That's on you. That's the firm I wanted to build. The reason that me, Mike, Pauline, Mary, Amy, all of us worked together at the same firm. The problem with that firm was they were top heavy. There was no way to get to the top. We were all blocked. I said, I don't want to have a firm where people who deserve to get to the top, to be a partner, to be a pioneer, would be blocked because there's too many people. We need to have a format where people perform and they make it to the top. End of story. Kyle's an absolute example of that, and I dare say, not even dare say, I know there are people in this room that are going to be partners here. It's guaranteed. Because they see it, they believe in it, and they want to build something, and they're not chasing money. The money will follow you when you do it right. It's just that simple. So as far as our future goes, well, we have the movement, right? We're moving to Clifton. That really is a new beginning for us in so many ways. It's going to be so much better than it's ever been. And although we're nostalgic about where we come from, we always honor our roots in the past. Hence why there's people in this room tonight that were invited because they played a very special part in what we are and how we got there. It's going to be a new start. And if you look at the things that we're doing, I mean, we're creating new lines of business on the fly. It just happened in the technology meeting. For those of you that were on it, we literally created a new line of business. Organically, it happened. So yes, investments, insurance, business valuations, real estate management, mergers and acquisitions, web services. All these things are being brought together because we're a sales and consulting firm. Evolve or die. It's that simple. And the last thing I'll say is, I loved my father, but I never want to work with him. I don't think that was a relationship that would have been healthy for either of us had he had a company. But Maria and I have our children here, Michael and Frank. We did not force them to be here. They were given a choice. If you want to join, you have the opportunity. If you don't, go do whatever will make you happy. And they opted to come to Geltrude. So I look at that and say, well, we must have done something right if, I don't know how long we'll be around, we'll actually be working together or whatever, but they want to work here with their parents? I don't know. Maybe they believe. Finally, let me thank the committee that put tonight together, because this is really a fantastic thing. I've been talking for over an hour.
We know.
I have so much more to say. The committee, fantastic job. Maria Geltrude, Joanne Carlin, Jenny, Frank Michael, and T. Thank you, T, for this setup. T, do we have something here? Were there gifts or fabulous prizes we were supposed to have? Did you forget those? Yeah. There's a fabulous prize. Hold on, there's a fabulous prize. Maria Geltrude, why don't you do the honors? Thank you, Mary. Very special. So, I'm going to step down now and do something that hasn't happened in 30 years. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Carlin.